The story begins with the billionaire, a man known for his wealth, influence, and commanding presence, entering the grand lobby of a corporate headquarters where he often held private meetings. He carried himself with the confidence of someone who had never needed to worry about being overheard by those he believed insignificant. His assistant trailed closely behind, notebook in hand, prepared to jot down instructions and absorb the cryptic language in which her employer often spoke. The billionaire had a habit of conversing in Hindi with his assistant whenever they discussed sensitive matters, believing it to be an unbreakable code in a city where few people understood the language, unnoticed in the background. A young black woman pushed a mop and bucket across the polished floor. She was dressed in her uniform, femininity woven into her posture. The quiet resignation of someone whose presence was rarely acknowledged, yet behind her quiet exterior was a sharp mind, a deep resilience, and a childhood spent between cultures that had equipped her with unexpected tools. Hindi was not foreign to her. She had grown up in a neighborhood where immigrant families mingled, where children absorbed languages, not just from textbooks, but from overheard conversations, friendships, and necessity. The billionaire, oblivious to the possibility, carried on, dismissing her as background noise. He leaned toward his assistant and began to speak freely, his words laced with arrogance, perhaps even cruelty. He discussed matters of business that exposed not only his empire's underbelly, but also his own disdain for the very workers who made his wealth possible. His assistant scribbled dutifully, hesitant at times, aware that some of the comments would not sound flattering if repeated in the wrong ears. The billionaire's confidence grew with each sentence. He believed himself untouchable, his language a shield. But the girl mopping the floor caught every word. At first, she blinked in surprise, unsure if she had heard correctly. Her ears sharpened. As the conversation unfolded, his Hindi was fast but clear, his voice practiced from years of using it as a private tool in public spaces. She absorbed his tone, his choice of words, and the revelations hidden in the exchange. What he did not know was that this girl's father had once been a translator, that she herself had navigated multiple worlds where language became survival. She understood more than just the vocabulary. She understood context, nuance, and the weight behind every careless remark. Her heart quickened as she realized the magnitude of what he was saying. Deals discussed in half-truths, the exploitation of workers framed as strategy, the mockery of those who believed in his philanthropy. It was not just business. It was betrayal spoken aloud, raw and unfiltered, masked only by the assumption that no one nearby could understand. She paused mid-swipe of the mop, her body angled as though still focused on her task. Yet her mind raced with the knowledge she now carried. The billionaire gestured with his hand, growing more animated. He laughed at his own jokes made, at the expense of communities who struggled under his policies. His assistant shifted uncomfortably but said nothing, and all the while, the girl cleaning behind them absorbed it in silence, the weight of being invisible becoming her unexpected advantage. For years she had been overlooked in rooms like this. People rarely met her eyes, rarely considered her capable of understanding, let alone intervening. Yet at this moment, her invisibility granted her access to truths others were too cautious to expose. The billionaire, unaware, continued. He spoke about upcoming plans, the people he intended to manipulate, the calculated moves hidden behind the facade of generosity. He believed he was safe, that his words evaporated into the air unheard. But in truth, they were embedding themselves in the mind of someone who would never forget them.
Ow.
The girl memorized the rhythm of his phrases, the details of his strategies, the casual cruelty disguised as brilliance. When he and his assistant finally turned to leave, he brushed past her without so much as a glance. His cologne lingered in the air, a sharp reminder of his presence. While his words echoed louder than the sound of her mop hitting the bucket, she finished her task slowly, deliberately, knowing that something had shifted. She carried not just the burden of overhearing, but the power that came with understanding. It was knowledge the billionaire never intended her to possess. In the days that followed, she replayed the scene in her mind. She weighed the risks of speaking out against the comfort of silence. She thought of her family, of the struggles they endured, of the opportunities denied to people like her. because of men like him. The story of her life had taught her patience, but it had also taught her that silence could become complicity. The more she thought about his words, the clearer it became. She had witnessed something important, something that deserved to be known. The billionaire continued his life untouched, still unaware. He gave interviews, posed for photographs, announced new ventures. To the world, he was polished perfection, a symbol of success. But beneath the image was the man she had seen exposed in the casual cruelty of his native tongue. The irony was almost poetic. He had chosen Hindi to hide, yet it was precisely that choice that betrayed him to her. Her awareness grew heavier each time she returned to work. Each time she saw his name in the news, the billionaire lived believing that those beneath him could never rise to challenge him, that languages could serve as walls rather than bridges. But the girl knew better. She knew that words had power, and power in the wrong hands could destroy. She carried his words like stones in her pocket, not yet knowing how she would use them, but certain that one day they would matter. And so the story remained suspended between silence and revelation, between the arrogance of a man who believed he was safe and the quiet resilience of a woman who knew the truth. The billionaire spoke freely, blind to the fact that the person he considered invisible was, in fact, the one who understood everything. And in her understanding lay a possibility. He had never considered that sometimes the most dangerous listener is the one you never notice.